10 times the judges couldn't stop laughing. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the SCREENY. The X Factor may be branded as a talent competition show, but it could easily fall under the comedy umbrella. Some of the contestants we've seen over the years were so downright hilarious that even the judges started cracking up in the middle of their performance. Let's take a look at 10 times the judges couldn't stop laughing. Before we remind you of some of the most amusing moments in the X Factor history, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Number 10. Far From Home. Some of the X Factor contestants really went the extra mile to be on this show, but Totoshiko from Japan took things to a whole new level. She traveled for nearly 6,000 miles, all the way from her home country, for one reason alone: to meet Simon Cowell. He was so moved by the effort Totoshiko put into being there that he let her approach the desk and gave her a hug. Unfortunately, there was one thing about Simon's biggest fan that wasn't so commendable: her singing voice. If the panel didn't know the title of her song beforehand, they probably wouldn't have even been able to name it. She completely butchered Frank Sinatra's legendary track My Way, as the judges did their best to hold back their laughter. Once she was done, they all clapped and told her she had a sweet voice, but it wasn't enough to put her over the finishing line. Unlike their fellow judges who gave her a yes, Simon and Sharon took their job a little more seriously and told Totoshiko that it's time to go home. Number 9. Good Kind of Bad. The X Factor judges have come across many terrible performers, but Ant and Seb gave them a show that they'll never forget. This musical duo tried to impress the panel with their rendition of Peter Andre's classic Mysterious Girl, but it quickly became clear that they're not up to the challenge. Ant tried to salvage the song the best way he knew how, but things took a turn for the worst every time his friend joined in. Seb's attempt to mimic Bubbler Ranks was so hysterical that the judges couldn't simply sit and take it in. They collectively burst into laughter every time the wannabe rapper jumped in to deliver his lines. Cheryl Cole looks like she was about to cry any second, but somehow managed to keep it together. Once the time for the final verdict came, Simon told the guys they should think about changing their name to Ant and Death before sending them straight home. Number 8. Turning Back. A majority of funny acts also happen to be pretty terrible, but Faye Holm was one of the rare exceptions to this rule. She admitted that facing Simon Cowell made her very nervous, and the notorious judge didn't make things any easier for this aspiring singer. As soon as Faye entered the room, he gave her the giggles by mispronouncing her last name as Horny, and things didn't get any better from that moment on. The young contestant tried to get herself together and start singing, but looking at Simon made it impossible. She was giggling like a schoolgirl every time their eyes met, and her rendition of Sam Smith's song Writing on the Wall fell flat. Sharon Osbourne told her fellow judge to turn around and let the girl sing in peace. Simon followed her orders, and Faye's stage fright completely disappeared after that. She wowed the judges with her powerful voice, and Cowell couldn't wait to turn around and vote yes with the rest of the panel. Number 7. Louis' biggest fan. Simon Cowell isn't the only X Factor judge with a devoted fan who showed up at the audition just to see him. Something similar happened to Louis Walsh, who met his biggest admirer when filming the show. Louis' #1 fan, Vicky, approached the panel as soon as she entered the room and shook hands with everyone. She presented her idol with the Louis Walsh fan book, an adorable little binder filled with photos and poems about the Irish judge. Simon Cowell couldn't contain his laughter after going through the book, and things took an even more hilarious turn after Vicky revealed that she runs the Louis Walsh fan club. Mr. Nasty made fun of his fellow judge after learning the club only had 45 members, but eventually let Vicky go on with her audition. Simon and Sharon wanted her to have a moment alone with her idol and listen to her rendition of My Heart Will Go On from Backstage. Vicky wasn't actually that bad, and Louis rewarded her with a yes vote. Number 6. Collapsing in laughter. Making Sharon Osbourne giggle isn't an accomplishment, since she spent dozens of auditions trying to contain her laughter. One would think that she would have gotten used to facing dreadful contestants after all these years, but she proved us wrong while crossing paths with Andrew Muirhead. Instead of picking a song that showcases his singing abilities, this dreadlocked wannabe made a pretty unusual choice. He went with Air Hostess by Busted, a silly track that featured several foolish lines. Sharon obviously never listened to this song before and couldn't help but chuckle after hearing the line, "I messed my pants when we flew over France." Her laughter was so hysterical that Andrew stopped singing and seemed completely lost while looking at the judges giggling like a bunch of crazy people. Sharon jokingly voted yes and said moments like this one give her job meaning. She was laughing so hard that she fell off her chair, while the contestants in the room next door wondered what the hell was going on. Number 5. Humming Queen. Performing original compositions in front of the X Factor judges often leads to a disastrous outcome, especially if your song doesn't have any words. Abiola Allicock needed nothing but her voice to cause fits of laughter during her audition. Unlike most original compositions that had the panel cracking up, her song didn't need hilarious lyrics to get the job done. Abiola hummed her way through it, and giggling along was the only way to deal with the high-pitched mess she made. Simon Cowell couldn't contain himself and started laughing like a crazy person in the middle of her performance. He didn't want to hurt Abiola's feelings and did the kindest thing that he could think of in that moment. Mr. Nasty turned around in his chair and kept on chuckling without distracting the contestant. Nicole Scherzinger also tried to hide her giggles by covering her face with the note she was holding and thanked the contestant once she was done humming. The judges didn't even bother to ask what the hell was that and simply told Abiola she's not the right fit. Number 4. Going backstage. Simon Cowell had to deal with a lot of nonsense since starting to serve as a judge on talent competition shows. Contestants were usually the ones giving him trouble, but every once in a while his fellow judges did the same. They made sitting through terrible acts even more dreadful, and Dawn Gerard's audition is one of the main examples. The aspiring pop star became a laughingstock of the panel before she even started singing. Louis Walsh was cracking up after hearing that she was once an apprentice jockey, and Sharon Osbourne followed suit. Cowell was so outraged by their behavior that he sent them backstage, but that apparently wasn't enough. Their laughter was so contagious that even Danny Minogue started giggling by the end and eventually left the desk. Despite showing incredible compassion for this contestant, Simon wasn't wowed by her rendition of Madonna's Cherish and told her to try again next year. Number 3. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Penelope Gomez went down in history as one of the most hilarious X Factor contestants thanks to her carefree approach to the whole thing. Her rendition of the Wizard of Oz theme song was so laugh-inducing that the judges wished that they could be somewhere over the rainbow as well. Penelope's strange accent didn't make the situation any better and forced the judges to giggle even more. Things could have taken a turn for the worse if she was offended once everyone started cracking up, but this X Factor hopeful simply laughed along. Despite having zero musical talent, Penelope managed to win over Sharon and Lewis, who gave her a positive vote once they finally stopped snickering. Simon Cowell wasn't in the mood for sending novelty acts to the next rounds that day, and the juvenile behavior of his fellow judges didn't sit well with him. He took a little break backstage and started plotting his resignation, but never followed through with it. Number 2. Hitting the Iceberg. Judges on talent competition shows have to sit through dozens of renditions of My Heart Will Go On and pretends they're not bored to death. Guyleen Rosange also went with this hit song during her audition on The X Factor, and gave the panel a taste of something they've never seen before. As a matter of fact, her performance was probably the worst thing the judges witnessed since Rose refused to make any room for Jack on that goddamn floor. It would be an understatement to say Rosange's voice wasn't powerful enough to do this justice, or any other song as a matter of fact. Simon Cowell was on a different plane of existence by the time she was done and couldn't even remember the name of the track that she tried to perform. He spent her whole audition chuckling with the rest of the judges and told Guyleen her voice was unlike anything he's ever heard before. Unfortunately, that wasn't a compliment, and the whole panel agreed sitting through her act felt like watching Titanic crash into an iceberg over and over again. Number 1. Tears of Laughter. Andre Batchelor promised he's going to give the judges a performance they've never seen before while auditioning on the X Factor. It turned out he's a man of his word, but that's not always a good thing. Batchelor started his acts by throwing confetti in the air before making everyone in the room question their reality with his awkward dance moves. Cowell and his fellow judges Nick Grimshaw and Rita Ora were dumbstruck by this act, but Cheryl Cole's reaction was something else. She did her best to compose herself, but it proved to be an impossible task. Once the camera cut to her, the former Girls Aloud singer was caught with tears streaming down her face. She managed to contain herself during the other terrible auditions that day, but Andre's reggae-inspired act was the last straw. Thank you very much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing content, and don't forget to check out one of the other 2 videos on your screen.